Welcome to the Lawless Astrology channel. My name is Dabney, and I am excited to welcome back Celeste Brooks. Hi, Celeste.
Hi, Dabney. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having
We
me
haven't had
back.
Celeste on for a little bit, and Celeste is an astrologer. You have to check out her amazing Instagram shows, but she also has YouTube shows. And everything that she puts on Instagram, she's now starting to put on YouTube. So I'm going to put all her YouTube information below. Is there any classes or anything that you have going on, Celeste, that you want to quick talk about?
Yes, I'm having a free workshop about the switch of the nodes, so into Pisces and Virgo on February 9th. So people can go to astrologybyceleste.com and sign up on the workshops page. So I'm very excited about that. And then I'm going to be teaching a class again. I'm going to be teaching astrology fundamentals starting at the end of February.
Is that going to be for Kepler or your own channel?
That's
Like,
my own class. Yeah, I'm teaching transits for Kepler in April, but this is my own class, astrology fundamentals.
oh my God, I love
And I
it.
have a moon mastery workshop about lunar planning in Sacramento on February 23rd.
Okay. All
So
right.
that's in
I'm going to
person.
get all those links from Celeste. I'll make sure to put them in the description. So don't forget. And I still do have some openings in my class, Revisioning Your Life for 2025. So all that information is going to be below. What are we going to talk about today? Today, we're going to be talking about, we're going to kind of look back at the new moon in December that was in Capricorn, just to give us kind of some grounding into what's happening now, because we're coming up to an Aquarian new moon, which has a completely different energy. And I know that we've all been sort of feeling like we've been bounced around like ping pong balls. We're trying to ground, we're trying to center. It gets hard when there's so much chaotic energy in the world, so much chaos in the news, so many things that feel disturbing in our own personal lives because of all this, change and upheaval. So, we're going to try to help make sense of what we think is coming. And yeah, and I've got a couple like parables to talk about. So, if you like my drunk history version of storytelling, stick around. Okay, Celeste. Do you want me to pull up the Capricorn new moon chart, or is there any?
Yes, I would love you to,
All
because
right.
the new moon seeds everything that goes on in the month. So, for any event in your life to get some insights, you can always go back to the new moon that preceded the event and you'll see things about the story. And we've opened this new chapter for America with Donald Trump becoming the president again and return of the king.
For better or for worse.
And I'm calling him the wizard because the North Node is in Pisces, and there's a very Wizard of Oz feel to what's going on. And I think we need to remember it's a lot of it is an illusion. Like all these things are said or that are going to be happening, like we're getting rid of birthright citizenship and this, that, and the other. Not all of it's going to happen. I think the barrage of executive orders and constant like hammering down of things intended to inspire fear they're all part of the propaganda machine, which is very Neptunian and Piscean. So we need to keep this in mind and not let every new thing send us into a tizzy fit, because that's the intent. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Yes, very
Yes.
apropos with Wicked and the themes of Wicked.
What perfect timing.
Right. I think, if you haven't seen Wicked, I highly recommend it. And, it's interesting how the cultural zeitgeist often does match what is coming astrologically, or the changing winds, the astrological changing winds. And so, there's a lot of Aquarian messages in that, uh, in Wicked, with Elphaba's very Aquarian, and then, like you said, this Neptune in Pisces. So this, just to clarify for everyone, this is a December chart. This is going back. So Celeste, you want to talk a little bit about why you wanted to look back before we look forward?
Yeah, because I wanted to look back because some of the biggest things that are happening right now, we had the inauguration and the fires in California. And both of these events were seeded at this new moon. And the new moon was in the sign of Capricorn, which rules governments as well as it's an earth sign. So we can think about, you know, there was a fire that started, and Capricorn is associated with mountains, associated with that. And
Yeah.
this is where we deepen our astrology by adding in things like asteroids and fixed stars. And this new moon at 9 Capricorn was right next to a fixed star Phosses, which is the most feared fixed star, one of them, not more than Algol, but it's pretty up there. And let me talk about that a little bit because it really speaks to what's going on. It's the eye of the archer, penetrating vision. It's like a lethal stare. And it holds some difficult symbolism, and it regards a person that has no regard for others, that can become or they can become a great leader or a fearsome dictator. The other side is that you may be a victim of the archer's stare. It can be cruel and ruthless, but in a gentler manifestation, it can symbolize strong, focused energy, producing someone who is a high achiever, but somewhat brusque in manner. So I wanted to talk about it because it also is associated with accidents and problems. Because, and if you have something at 8 Capricorn, don't freak out. Taylor Swift has her Mercury right there. And she's got that penetrating vision. She's so hardworking. She's been extremely successful. But this new moon, we have someone who'd like to be an authoritarian dictator was inaugurated, is my perspective for entertainment only on this new leader. So that was kind of seeding things. And then right after the full moon, it was when he took office. So if you look at one of the things I wanted to point at, Mars, the planet of action, drive, assertion, conflict, and violence, at the time of the new moon was at 2 degrees of Leo, retrograding to oppose Pluto, which is this really intense energy about Leonic energy is about the one, the celebrity, the royalty taking their actions. And when a planet's retrograde, they're doing it like kind of chaotically. But Pluto's more powerful. And Pluto's in the sign of Aquarius, the sign of the collective. So I see this Leonic leader doing all this stuff, boom, 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 throwing it all everywhere. But what's going to stick? Potentially not much. So I think we need to remember that. What do you think about that thought?
Well, I definitely think that Leo energy, Leo plays prominently in his chart, and it's opposing that Pluto and Aquarius, and Aquarius is the collective, it is the people. Also, there is the chaos too of these oligarchic tech bros who suddenly like take center stage during, kind of out of nowhere in some ways. Like this isn't energy that I think a lot of people were expecting, that, during the inauguration that it would be moved inside. Oh, hello. The inauguration would be moved inside and all the people would be out in the cold, whereas like all of the leaders of the tech movement and the broligarchy, there is this kind of like push pull of like what's happening. I'm not understanding who are the leaders. And so there's kind of the seeds being laid right now of, is there a new dawning coming? It's kind of like they each own a piece of it, right? Because Trump can be a very Aquarian figure by shaking things up, but he can also be this very like staid, has a gold toilet, that's very Leo energy, like, the hair and, everything. But then these people are the ones with the money. So all of this, Pluto rules over like other people's money too, like in a lot of ways, and the power structure. So there's just this power dynamic at play that we don't, that is starting to unfold, but we're only starting to see the what's unfolding. And I don't think we're going to have a full picture of it until it concludes in April.
Mhm.
Would you
That's
agree with that?
fantastic. I think that's fantastic. Yeah, when the sun came to Pluto, that's when we realized our eyes are looking at those five, which is a number of conflict, like in the tarot, all the five cards have to do with conflict. Five tech bros in the front row of the inauguration. Elevated Venus in Pisces. Pisces, Venus is exalted in Pisces, elevated above even his cabinet to the front
Or yeah,
row.
the other senators and things like
And
that.
no, yeah, yeah. So,
The one thing
yeah.
I'll also point out too is when this happened, we hadn't switched the nodes yet. And we have Neptune sitting really closely to this North Node in Aries, which really, I think there's a lot of missed opportunities by the Biden administration during this time where it was about like taking decisive action for compassion and to that, that's kind of the evolutionary purpose of a North Node in Aries, and kind of like right about to switch over next to Neptune. It's like, punching the bully back, like taking decisive action, being a leader, but with a compassionate heart and looking to ways in which you can broaden your compassion through strong leadership.
Mm,
So
mhm.
that's again for entertainment only purposes. My personal opinion is that not enough um, was done in those last few days where there was
Oh
some.
yeah, he protected his family, but what about us?
Right.
I,
Yeah. And
I
also if anybody who has followed me at all knows that I've been doing a lot of things for the Equal Rights Amendment for years now. And, he just went up to the edge of what he could do. He could have done so much more to finally publish it because there is precedent and it's fully ratified. And so, he let a lot of women down by not being as decisive and um, as strong of a leader. But here
yeah,
we are in this time of writing notes to someone we called a fascist, telling them to have fun in their next
yeah.
election. So,
So this seeded it. When the thing about the fires is Mars is retrograde in a fire sign. Leo rules performers, and it's making what's called a hammer of Thor, which is a chart pattern where you have one planet. So Mars is sesqui-square both Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius and Saturn in the sign of Pisces, and they're square each other. So one of the things we saw is and like with Thor's hammer, Thor, the god, the Norse god, used to pick it up and like knock the tops off a mountain. He would like fling it and it would just go woo and knock the tops off the mountain. And you can think about Mercury square, square Saturn, control Saturn over communications and stuff like that. What we're seeing more and more behind the scenes. They're doing stuff with algorithms, but we're also seeing like the firefighters, Mercury and Sagittarius, these heroes run up to the fire hydrant in LA, turn it, and Saturn and Pisces, there's a lack of water to combat the fire. So it was like that was another thing. We see these fires getting out of control, and we could talk forever about that. But I just wanted to bring it up that this was the new moon that seeded it. And then Mars moved back into the sign of Cancer, and that's when the fire started, was when Mars was at 29 degrees of Cancer, a degree of crisis and decay. And the inauguration happened while Mars was in Cancer, in the sign of its fall and retrograde. So some of these actions, I feel like they're flailing all over the place, designed to protect the country, but the psychological warfare, da 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 da. Not that a lot that's very difficult and traumatizing is not going to happen. Yes, it's already happened, but I think let's just so many people are just freaking out like the world's over. I wanted to
Yeah.
give some perspective that it may not all come to as bad as we think it could possibly be.
Yes. And so we're going to look next at what's coming up. But I also want to just acknowledge that if you heard Celeste talking about a hammer of Thor and you're like, what is she talking about? She studied under Anne Ortley, who some of you know very well. And I swear to God, no other astrologer that I know talks about hammers of Thor the way Anne does. So it's always kind of a pleasure to have an Anne mentee, I should say,
Yeah.
here.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So people who are familiar with a yod, which is where there's a planet that is quincunx to planets in school in sextile, that kind of softens the energy. A hammer of Thor is here. It's like it's intense when these things are activated.
So I think one of the cool things that Celeste was talking about is sort of like thinking about from new moon to full moon or new moon to new moon as like cycles. And I've been doing a lot with cycles internally to try to make sense of what's happening. And I'm actually going to have a video coming out this week but I'm just getting all my thoughts together on cycles and like the life cycles and generational cycles and just the cycles of the universe and planetary cycles. And we have to recognize that we're in these kind of cycles. And there is some real wise truth there about not overreacting and recognizing that a lot of this is kind of this big bombast and chaos is intended to overwhelm us. Right now, this doesn't mean that there aren't real implications and that we all don't have real concerns and real fears. All of that's real. Like we may know people who are directly impacted by, the ice raids. Like there's, real concerns about vaccines not becoming scarce or unavailable. So, I mean, there's all, a real concern about the economy. Like all of these things are real. And we don't know yet. And so that's part of that bringing us to this new moon, which happens on January 29th. And so it was interesting because I've been playing around with in my mind the story of Icarus. And I'm going to kind of talk about the story of Icarus again. Bear with me because, I did not study mythology in college or anything, but the story of Icarus, if you're not familiar, is there was a Greek king in Crete named Minos, and he needed some help containing the Minotaur, who was like this big, unwieldy, monster. And so he hired a slave who was an excellent craftsman named Daedalus. And so Daedalus built the labyrinth, and the labyrinth is like a big maze, and that's where he put the Minotaur. So, anyway, he got elevated out of slave status and he was like the king's craftsman at this point, Minos's craftsman. And so, he was in favor. Well, then some stuff happened and the Athenian, hero came and killed the Minotaur, and somehow Daedalus was complicit. I don't really remember all the details, but it's not super important to the story. But what is important was that Minos was mad, but he didn't want to lose his craftsman. So normally he would like off with his head kind of thing. But instead, he decided to imprison him and his son, Icarus, in the maze. So he could call on him whenever he needed a craftsman still. So Daedalus did not want to be trapped in his maze that he had created himself. And so he, was very bright, and he developed a plan when he saw birds flying overhead that he was going to create some wings and use wax to, put the wings together so he and his son could fly out of there. And because that was really the only escape that they had. So again, if I'm getting little details wrong, I don't want to hear about it, but love y'all. Okay. So anyway, he like
It
he and
sounds great so far. It's aligning with what I know.
so his son decides to, and so before they take off, before they escape, Daedalus says, Icarus, okay, I just use wax for this. I don't have like real glue. Like, this is really shoddy. It's the best I could do with what I have. You cannot fly close to the sun. It's super important because the wax will melt. And you cannot fly too close to the ocean, no, not too close to the water, because the salt water will like kind of make it like it'll get up in there and it'll mess it all up. So you really, this is important. Okay. Gotcha, Dad. All good. So they escape and it worked. They were flying and they were so happy. And then Icarus was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I've got so much power. I'm flying. And this is something that no human had ever done before. And so he just kept flying and he kept flying and he kept going closer and closer to the sun. And Daedalus is like, oh my God, stop it. What are you doing? But he just kept going closer and closer to the sun. Well, lo and behold, guess what happens? The wax melts. He goes crashing to the ocean and dies. Daedalus is mourning and he's super sad, but he decides like there's nothing I can do. My son is dead, so I'm gonna keep going. And like he landed in safely and he escaped. Minos and Hercules said that he saw Daedalus and Icarus die. And so the whole thing was put to bed and Daedalus survives. Okay, what's this all about? Why am I telling you guys this myth? The reason why I'm telling you this myth is this has been on my mind as I've been watching this broligarchy unfold and the hubris of these executive orders and just all of the things like that are coming out and all of the people that have warned about Project 2025 and kind of saying like, be careful, this is what you're going to get, right? And suddenly here we are, and we're not really getting, a lot of people are not getting what they thought they were getting, right? The price of eggs is skyrocketed, and that's because of bird flu. And it's not because, just the same way that it wasn't, the Democrats' fault. Like, there's actual complicated reasons for these things. But the thing that I found incredibly synchronistic was I was thinking about doing this whole video about the X-Man and, the tremendous hubris and the myth of Icarus, because it does have something to do with Aquarian energy. Well, I was watching another video the other day and they called attention and they mentioned Icarus, right? So it's like great minds thinking alike. And they called attention to the fact that the asteroid Icarus on this new moon is completely conjunct the new moon. So the asteroid Icarus actually is about hubris and not going too far. Not, it's kind of the myth. It's the moral of the story. It's the moral, which is like you have to be careful, you have to be measured, you have to be more like the dad. Because if you want to get to safety, if you want to land, there has to be balance. You have to not fly too high and think you're the greatest thing and that nothing can ever touch you. Okay.
Very Mars retrograde in Cancer, Icarus died
Very
in the sea because he
right.
Mars used Mars energy flying too close to the sun.
Yes, and that's, making this aspect with Saturn and so there's something about what's happening now about kind of going too far, not heeding the warnings, not playing by the rules. That's the cautionary tale right now. And so in our own lives, this is the cautionary tale because this is a very Aquarian new moon. Not only do we have the sun and the moon in Aquarius, which is about new vision. It's about doing things differently. It's about taking bold action, but it's about bold action for the collective. It's about making people's lives better. So it can be argued that some of these things are about making life better. And I actually can see that there are, the state of our country has gotten really so dysfunctional in a lot of ways. Our government has gotten dysfunctional, and there are necessary changes that need to be made. but it's the hubris. It's the way in which it's done. It's the, emperor has no clothes that makes it a little bit scary for all of us. And it also has, very closely up here in a wide conjunction, Pluto and Mercury. So there is kind of, again, like this bombast, this like really taking big chances, coming out and with big declarations of something new. But Pluto is there also, which is kind of dark. And I think a lot of people have been feeling this sort of dark energy. So in our own personal lives, what I would say is this is a new moon that is about us having a new vision, but making sure it's very level headed, paying attention to that Icarus. Don't get so full of yourself. This new vision has to be about what you can bring to the collective, how you can help the world, not just help yourself. Celeste, what do
I
you
love that. Yes. Yeah, with Icarus conjunct this new moon, what's being seeded about who is going to fly too close to the sun and crash into the sea. When you were talking about the maze, that made me think of the Pentagon. I don't know. It just
Oh,
looks
yeah.
kind of like something about it looks like the labyrinth. And yeah, this Pete Hegseth. I'm really interested to see if he makes it across the line. My first thing is he will, because Jupiter in Gemini is stationing on his descendant. To me, this is like advantage coming from others. I know Susan Collins is going to say no. I wonder if it's all performative. It will be interesting to see if he doesn't make it through. Mm.
I think he's going to make it through. That would
That's
be
my thought is
I think
he's
all of his nominees are going to go through. I don't think I think there's going to be the usual BS where they, like the two people, they know it'll still go through, but they can, in swing
save
district.
face.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think that the important thing for this that I want to communicate is, avoiding instant gratification,
Mm.
avoiding carelessness. These are kind of the things that, like that Jupiter and Gemini is careless. There's also that. Also, the next day, Uranus is going to be going stationary direct, which is also kind of interesting for the fires. Uranus has been in Taurus. And so Uranus in Taurus is about climate change. And, it's kind of like Mother Earth in this very changeable lightning strikes sign. And so there might be something maybe positive about the fact that Uranus is going to move forward. Right now, with it in retrograde, it's been like just felt very destructive. It felt, very depressing, but maybe there'll be more solutions. Even if we've been pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, first of all, like that was a very long term, like, thing, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while to get us out of it. It's going to take us a while to get out of the World Health Organization. Some of these things, and I will say that this spring doesn't look fantastic astrologically for some of the people in the new administration that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough spring. That one, number one, I think bird flu is going to be an issue or some kind of illness because we're going to have a eclipse in Virgo, a health sign. It's quite possible that there could be an issue around it. Mm,
And also
I
with that South Node in Virgo, that's
yeah.
something to think about too, that health is going to be on a lot of people's minds. And that could be about health care, it could be about unions and workers. But it's kind of like the stellium. This is an interesting chart. And if you see how different it is from the last chart, which was very scattershot, like the last
Hmm.
one was kind of all over. This is very focused, a lot of Aquarian energy and a lot of Piscean energy. And so we have to look at what are the themes for those signs. And, we've talked a lot now about the Aquarian energy, which has to do with shaking up the status quo, kind of doing things differently. And so I, for one, am, while I'm I am not optimistic, but I am realistic. And I also see the flaws in our current systems. And I am hopeful that there are some silver linings while not turning away from the humanitarian crisis that we are embarking upon. But in the silver lining department, things do need to be shaken up. But it's kind of this Icarus sitting there, like flying two crows for the sun, the carelessness, the not very level headed way in which it's being done. Change can come incrementally, or it can come in a wrecking ball, and we're getting obviously the wrecking ball, and the void that's left in a wrecking ball situation is often much more dangerous than in the incremental, more well thought out change. But change is needed, and so that's the positive thing I will say, is I do believe change is needed. And maybe there,
Absolutely.
I was saying to my husband the other day, and I'm not wishing any of this, but I was saying, sometimes like we've become so out of balance with the earth and our materialism. Well, if there's giant tariffs put on things, we will not be buying as much. It's just a fact. Like we can't afford it, right? And so maybe we're not just constantly purchasing like stupid junk from China that we don't need. Maybe we're more thoughtful about what we need to purchase. Maybe things like fast fashion will go the way of the dodo bird, which would be good for our landfills. So kind of like taking a broader look at like the maybe the some of the positive consequences of challenging circumstances.
That's a great way to look at things. Yeah. And remember,
Keep
Aquarius
my
also,
sanity. Trying real
huh?
hard over here.
I love it. Yeah. Also, Aquarius rules groups, organizations, friends, the community, the collective, and you can think about, let's notice what groups and organizations fly too close to the sun or get singed during this. But I think we can take a look at what's going on with the fires, gives us an understanding of what's happening underneath things energetically. So tomorrow, Venus in Pisces is trine Mars retrograde. So rain is expected. Venus is a benefic, Mars is a malefic. Benefics aid to life, malefics take away from it. We can think about how the rain is, in general, is beautiful and it will help limit the fires. But then Venus sextiles Uranus retrograde in Taurus and Earth sign, which to me is, oh, all this water comes down and then the land starts to slide. So it looks like, oh, we're having some successes. Oh, we're having this nice thing
And then
happen.
it just all falls
And then it
apart.
starts to fall apart. And Uranus goes direct. Let's see what's going on with landslides and things and like really notice around the 30th. And when a planet excuse me, Uranus goes direct. So when a planet stations to change direction, its energy is intensified a few days, up to 5 days before and after.
Yeah. Bless you.
Sorry.
No worries. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
stellium in Pisces really is interesting on this new moon, because Venus likes to be in Pisces. It's a creative, it's imaginative. Neptune likes to be in Pisces, but there's kind of this sense of like apathy in that like you can sort of escape, like I don't want to pay attention, and you turn away. Um and Saturn's asking us not to turn away. Like Saturn's sitting there sort of saying, don't turn away. Like enjoy your life. Just, it's okay to enjoy your life, even though things are happening. But
It's important to enjoy your life.
yeah, maybe there's some discipline in, you know, maybe that's part of it too, is kind of putting down the worries, because this is all kind of sitting next to that north node in Pisces, which does have to do with really stepping into compassion and love and moving away from all of the fear mongering and worries that spin around in our heads with that Virgo South Node. So there could be something to that, but I think it's about kind of compassionately tuning in, is what I would say. It's kind of like, what can you do to help? How can you help during this time? And maybe it's just helping a friend. Maybe it's texting somebody. Maybe it's, even, and it doesn't always have to be like a financial donation. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, what can you do to reach out to someone that you love? Maybe send them flowers or let them know you're thinking of them, something like that.
Very nice. Yes.
Thank you.
Date nights. Like take take time to let wear the world loosely and just enjoy the simple things in life.
Yeah, and maybe that's almost like that's our
Or
our work right now. That's like our
or
job.
movie night. Yeah.
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 So, okay, anything else I'm gonna stop sharing unless you're good.
I want to say when you look at Venus with the eye, she's besieged between Saturn and Neptune. So, mm, to me, this is, yeah, water or overflowing emotions can be a bit of a problem. I'm also looking at, I think, part of the propaganda machine. I want to take us back to 2016 when the National Enquirer published something about Ted Cruz's father killed Kennedy. Do you remember that?
Unfortunately, I remember way too much of this stuff.
Yeah, it was just so ludicrous and out of nowhere, but it was all a planned attack because the National Enquirer guy is friends with the
It's the
wizard. Is
wizard.
friends with the wizard, and it was a way to help him with the election,
I think we should call him
alleged.
the Wizard of Oz because the wizard sounds almost like he's wise, but he's like,
Oh,
you
Oz.
know.
Should I just call him Oz?
I don't know. I
Okay, the
like
Wizard of Oz. Yeah. And now what they're going to be using the same tactic. This is something I think that's going on in order to take down culturally icons because they've got it in their idea that they're going to somehow figure out how to take over culture, which they're smoking something funny. But anyway, one of the rumors they're trying to start is that Barack Obama's having an affair with Jennifer Aniston.
okay.
So watch what you see happening with that. Because if there's like AI images or something, I'm not going to believe it unless I see the two of them together on like a red carpet with other people around. And this is going to like Michelle and Barack are getting divorced because she wasn't at the inauguration or Jimmy Carter's funeral. So,
I know that I just saw that he's releasing the JFK and MLK files. And my guess is the MLK files is meant to smear if
Martin Luther King, yes.
right. And was MLK Aquarian? I feel like he
He's
was
Capricornian.
Capricorn.
He's a
Okay. All right.
Capricorn.
Both Saturn ruled, but
Oh
um
yeah, he had affairs.
that's so, I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's very interesting. It's very selective what's being released, because there could have been other files, shall we say, released that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about Martin Luther King. The other one I'm wondering about is Oprah. This new moon is conjunct her sun Venus conjunction, and there's other stuff going on in her chart. She's got Uranus in the South Node in um, Cancer, so that Mars retrograde is really activating her chart and RFK's chart
I
too.
think there is some truth. I'm going to stop share right now. I think there's definitely, or were you good? Did you want
I'm
to?
good. Yeah,
Okay.
we
I
didn't
agree
need to
with you.
talk.
I'm going to be doing another video about kind of the Pluto and Aquarius being opposite Pluto and Leo. And Pluto and Leo had so much to do with celebrity culture. And, the celebrities that we grew up with, like just we've always and here the celebrity mansions are burning under Pluto and Aquarius, and it's not only the celebrity mansions that are burning because Altadena has nothing to do with that, but kind of this symbolic Hollywood. um
That Mars retrograde in Leo, it really is. the fact that California, this dreamland, this is people
Dreamland.
around the world's image of the
Oz.
United States, of glamour and wealth and beauty destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are fated right now, I believe,
Mhm.
happening in the world. And this is all a process, and it's all about, and it is all about these cycles, and what comes up must go down, and not everything lasts forever. And so that's another thing to keep in mind, because this has everything to do with this Aquarius new moon, all of the outer signs changing, or outer planets changing signs, especially Pluto and Aquarius, is change. It's heralding change. And so what goes up must come down. What goes down eventually goes up. Like it's a circle of life. And so try to hang in there with all this, crazy, crazy energy. And oh, one last thing. I forgot. I was going to tell another story. How long?
Oh, I
Right?
wanted, wait, before you tell your other story, can I say, oh, I forgot
Yep.
what I was going to say.
Were you going to
Mm.
talk about Diddy? Were you going to talk about other some celebrities
Well,
gossip?
I wonder with the fires, like I had this hit, like what about when they're going through all this debris? Is there something going to come up about that's going to catch our attention? Maybe Uranus and Taurus, Uranus direct. Are they going to find something that
Shocking in the
in
earth.
the Hollywood Hills is what I thought. The Hollywood Hills also had a fire
Yeah.
that, like a dungeon that was down there or something like that.
Could be interesting. You never know.
Yeah, could
You
be
never know.
interesting. Something bred in circuses, something to entertain the people about this all their suspicions about, the lifestyles of the rich and famous.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is, the it's really interesting because these are people these are all icons and heroes that we grew up admiring and loving, but they had outsized influence in some ways. And, you know,
Some of them have outsized appetites.
right. And then we had the Weinstein scandals. And like the reality is I can tell like this, I'm gonna save my other story. I was gonna talk about the snake story, but I already told that long Icarus story, so maybe I'll do it
Yeah,
short.
I think you should save it.
I'll save
Yeah.
it. But what I was going to say is, there's a lot of darkness in Hollywood. It is the glitz and glamour. I was looking at the LA chart today, the chart of LA, and it was like Aries rising, and it was like a Capricorn or something. And I was like, wow, that's like not what you would expect. Or maybe it was a Virgo. Anyway, point being, I was 22 years old and I was living in Austin, Texas. And I was really unhappy. I had a stupid temp job and I was like, always wanted to live in California. So I was trying to get to California. And I had an interview with someone that was looking for a photographer assistant. And this is before, I mean, we had the internet, but it was like really the early days of the internet. So you couldn't like research people very much or anything like that. And I was just I didn't have money to go to California. So I was like trying to get a job. Bottom line is this guy gets on the phone with me. I'm 21, 22 years old, and he starts like being super pervy and asking me like what I'm willing to do as his assistant. And like, like, well, sometimes you got to take your clothes off and get down with the models. Like, I mean, clearly, like, I didn't know what the heck I was getting myself into, right? And so I was like, what are you talking about? Like real innocent, like no idea what's happening. Did not get the job, obviously. Wouldn't have taken it anyway. But that's LA too. Like that kind of like stuff. I think had I moved out to LA and, worked in a casting director's office or worked in like a studio job or something like that, I would have been exposed to all sorts of crazy underbelly kind of things. So yeah,
It's
it's
very Venus and Pisces conjunct Saturn, and there's three conjunctions. We've already had one. Venus and Pisces to get elevated to become a movie star. Pisces rules, these illusionary things, or Venus Neptune, but you got to do some work on your knees at the casting couch.
Yep. And I have lots of friends that have those stories that did go to LA. And but that's the same in Washington too. It's really any proximity to power where men are in charge. And I don't know if you saw the news story about Cassidy Hutchinson.
No.
They want to now like do a big investigation of January 6th and how they, like Liz Cheney abused her power and all this nonsense. And so Johnson, one of Johnson's aides, came and said, like, do not subpoena Cassidy Hutchinson's texts because you're like, there was multiple congressmen that like basically sexted her and like said, if you want to get ahead, you have to have sex with me. And like, if they subpoena those texts, that's out there in the public record.
Ah.
So, I think there's like some things that will become exposed in due time. We are not in the due time yet. We are in the like,
Yeah,
we're in
deer in
the
the headlights.
headlights.
Deer in the headlights. I mean, yeah, it's
There's
a
a new
tough.
vision, things are coming, but like our job right now, take care of our families, take care of ourselves, take care of like our mental health, take care of, you
That's
know,
the biggest thing. Mental, physical health with the nodes in Pisces, mental health, and
yep.
Virgo, physical health.
Yep. Make yourself a nice meal, show love, don't panic. We're not alone. There's also evidence now that, voter suppression played a big, big role in the outcome. And that is heartening because that means that it wasn't people necessarily stayed home. It's that their votes weren't counted. So that voter suppression, for the past 4 years, laws have been, we've got to pay attention, people. But a lot of us are paying attention, and there's still not much we can do until the cosmos decides to give us a boost, or at least the Democrats grow a pair. Sorry.
That would be that would be nice.
Would be nice.
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah.
good
But
ones.
this Uranus stationing direct is going to be really interesting. It's on Trump's midheaven.
Mhm.
It's yeah. We didn't talk about the new moon is in the 12th house. So
Yeah.
there could be something that feels like it's coming out of nowhere. I hope they don't do a rice stag fire BS.
There's definitely like, I think 12th house is hidden. Like there's things that we
Something
can't
hidden.
see.
Yeah,
So
it's
there are
going to
things
come to light.
happening. Just be patient, people. Like just breathe. Like I understand it's stressful. So Celeste, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Daphne. This was a fantastic conversation. I so enjoyed it.
It's
Can I
always fun
plug
when we
my
get
things
together.
one more time?
What'd you say? Oh,
Uh,
plug away. Everyone go to Celeste's stuff down below. You want to tell about it again or
Yeah, so just astrologybyceleste.com is my website. I'm Astrology by Celeste everywhere. Please follow me on all the things or subscribe to my channels
we're both
and my
on Blue
podcast.
Sky. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the same for Daphne. I'll put this all over. Uh, my podcast is Celestial Insights, and you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts to help you surf the energies of the week like a boss.
Oh, I like it. And she did a really good one that I just listened to and I really enjoyed her oracle reading. She does like a weekly oracle thing that I just loved where she picks tarot cards and stuff too. And that's a lot of fun for those of you that like tarot cards.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I love doing that. I love pulling cards for people. I have to start a show on YouTube, especially now that Meta's
gone to the dark side.
talking about, yeah, no
Yeah.
fact checkers and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really not on Instagram anymore. Um I'm very, anti-meta right now. But you can find me on Blue Sky and Celeste is gonna come back. I'm gonna make her. So
Absolutely. Anytime. I
just
love
subscribe to
chatting
us
with you.
both. If you're not subscribed, subscribe and have a good week, stargazers. The cosmos is conspiring to help us. It's a breathing. Okay. Bye.
Okay.